Hi, welcome to my channel. Today is Hyperemesis Gravidarum Awareness Day, so I thought I would do a video talking about my experiences with hyperemesis. If you don't know what it is, it's a pregnancy condition that is severe sickness. It's not like morning sickness, it's excess vomiting, dehydration, nausea, and it's very severe, so it can be fatal if it's not treated correctly. I've had it twice in both my pregnancies, and I've mentioned it a few times on my channel, but I've never actually spoken about it, so this is the video where I'm going to do that. And it's a really difficult subject for me. It's a hard thing to talk about because it's one of the worst things I've ever gone through in my life, so I might shed a few tears. I'm hoping I don't break down at all, but to warn you, that might happen. I'll start at the beginning. So my husband and I got married and we wanted kids straight away. We really wanted to start our own family. But a week after we got married, he went on tour with his band in the US for 3 months, and I stayed in Ireland. So we said we'd have our honeymoon when he got back, and then after that we'd start trying for a baby. So he went away, and then I met him in New York towards the end of his tour, and surprise, I got pregnant. And it wasn't planned, but it was a happy surprise. Like, we were thrilled. I found out a few weeks later when I was back in Ireland. My husband was still in the US. Around 6 weeks pregnant, nausea started, and it was just a little bit of nausea. I remember I went to lunch with a friend of mine and I couldn't eat a bagel. Like, the smell was just making me feel sick, and I joked about oh, wouldn't it be great if I actually lost weight this pregnancy because I'm too nauseous to eat. I had no idea what was to come because I'd never heard of hyperemesis before. So a few days later my husband came home and we went to the doctor, got everything confirmed, told our families the big news. I know you're supposed to wait until 3 months, but we were so excited and we didn't want to wait, so we just told everyone straight away. Then on the morning of 7 weeks pregnant, I was hit with hyperemesis. Like, it hit me like a truck. I went to bed the night before still feeling like a little bit of nausea, the same thing I'd been feeling throughout the week, and I woke up and I can't even describe how bad it was. I woke up and I couldn't open my eyes, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't breathe. I was just kind of stuck lying there like a statue, like, what the heck is this nausea? This is so severe. And my husband lying beside me, he did something like turned over, and just that movement, I just threw up everywhere. And I couldn't even run to the bathroom. I threw up all over the side of the bed. And I threw up and I kind of just lay back down, and my husband was like jumping up and like, what happened? Are you okay? And I couldn't answer him. I was kind of like, okay, I'll wait for this wave of nausea to go and then I'll communicate. But right now I just need to keep my eyes closed. I need to not move, not breathe. But that wave never ended. It didn't end for the full 9 months. So he was trying to get me to drink water and trying to help me. But anytime I had a little sip of water, I'd throw up again, and I couldn't eat anything, and I couldn't do anything. I could not get out of bed. And then after a few days, I think we realized this was kind of serious. So we went to the doctor, and the doctor kind of dismissed us. He was like, oh, it's regular morning sickness, you'll be fine, it'll go away soon. So we went back home, and I went straight back to bed, and our days were just me lying in bed trying not to move and him cleaning out my puke bucket. I think I was getting sick about 20 to 40 times a day, and I was just getting worse and worse and worse. Like, my lips were so cracked, my mouth was like sandpaper. I'd throw up everything that was in my stomach until there was nothing left to throw up, and then I'd keep retching and it was just bile. It was just horrible. And I think we went back to the doctor again. And again, it was just a dismissal. It was just this morning sickness, you'll get over it. And you know, hyperemesis is so rare. It's I think it only affects 1% of pregnancies, but even then it's not always that severe that you need hospitalization or that you need medication. So I was just getting dismissed. And then the doctor said, look, I can't prescribe you medication, you have to go to the midwives. So a few days later we went to the midwives, and they said, oh no, we can't prescribe you medication, it has to be the doctor. And if I wasn't so sick, I probably would have been demanding, I need the right medication and you need to give this to me, and insisting on seeing the right doctor and Googling my symptoms and trying to figure all this out. But honestly, I was so sick, I had no fight in me. So my husband was just trying to do his best. He was trying to carry me from appointment to appointment, and neither of us knew what to do. So it was just kind of being at home, lying in bed, vomiting, and trying to survive. And as I said, I couldn't drink water, but I found that I could keep down Mr. Freeze ice pops. You know, those come in like little plastic bag stick things. So but even then I couldn't just eat them. I'd have to have like a little drip, and then wait a little while, and then another little drip, and then wait a little while, and it would take me like an hour to have one Mr. Freeze. And by the time I got to the end, it would be totally just melted liquid, and it would be warm. But it was all I could keep down, so I'd just have to work through this Mr. Freeze. But even then, I was so dehydrated. I was just deteriorating. So my husband brought me back to the doctor again, and at this point I could barely walk. He like carried me in, and I couldn't sit in the chair in the waiting room. I like had to lie down on the floor in the doctor's waiting room and keep my eyes closed, and I was still trying not to breathe. So I was kind of doing like my shallow panting, because if I breathed normally I would vomit. And the receptionist came over, and she was trying to help me as best she could. Like, she could see that I needed help. But even then, when we went into the doctor, it was still kind of, it's morning sickness, it's normal. But my husband wasn't taking that. He said, no, she needs help. We need help. She has to have medication. So he finally gave me medication. It was Valoid. But that didn't really work. Like, it barely scratched the surface. I think it brought my vomiting from 40 times a day to 20 times a day. And the doctors and midwives, they were suggesting you really should go to hospital to get IVs because, you know, you're dehydrated. But I just felt like I wouldn't be able to survive a 45-minute trip to the hospital. Like, our doctor's surgery was 5 minutes away, and I barely could handle that. So as much as I knew I needed to get to hospital, I just couldn't. It would take too much for me to get to hospital. And then with food, everything I would try to eat, I would throw up. You know, I was craving green apples. All I wanted my whole pregnancy was a green apple. I was craving it so bad, but every time I had a bite of a green apple, I would throw it up. And I wouldn't just throw up the green apple. I would throw up everything that was in my stomach, right down to the bile, which would make my nausea so much worse. So it became too difficult to even try and eat, because I'd just get worse if I tried to eat. But then after a while, I found that I could keep bread down and toast down. So that's what I was able to eat and not throw it back up. And then when I did have something in my stomach, my nausea felt a little bit better. So it was really important to me to just try and get as much bread as I could into my stomach so that I wouldn't be at my lowest. You know, when I envisioned my pregnancy, I thought I would be, you know, eating the healthiest foods and taking all my prenatal vitamins and continue working out, pregnancy yoga, and doing all the bump progress pictures. And this was just, I was living a nightmare. I was just lying in bed, shoveling down bread. It wasn't even taking it day by day to survive. It was taking it minute by minute to survive. Yeah, it was tough. The worst thing about it was that nobody understood. Not my doctors, not my family, not my friends. No one understood how bad it was. And I'd get so many comments from people like, it's all in your mind. Just think you're not sick and you won't be sick. And oh, I would have loved to have spent all my pregnancy lying in bed. That would have been great. I just didn't have time for that. Like, it was a choice for me. I remember the morning of our honeymoon, we were supposed to be jetting off to the Caribbean for 2 weeks, and I couldn't lift my head off the bathroom floor. I couldn't even get in the car to go to the airport, let alone go on a 10-hour flight. So we didn't get to go on our honeymoon. The only thing that was giving me hope was that everyone kept saying it'll go away at 12 weeks. And then when I got to 12 weeks, they'd say, okay, it'll go away at 14 weeks. And then they kept pushing it further back. And then I think when I passed 20 weeks and I was still sick, they kind of said, okay, you're probably going to have the whole 9 months then. At this point though, I still didn't even know what was wrong with me because no one was taking it seriously. I wasn't getting any kind of diagnosis or treatment plan ever. I was just getting dismissed. So, and I couldn't do my own research because if I tried to look at my phone screen or a laptop screen, I'd vomit. So I just couldn't do it. I remember one time I was lying in the dark room, same thing as always, like still lying like a statue with shallow breath. And my husband came in to lie beside me and just be beside me. After a few minutes, he took out his phone to check the time. And even though I was lying with my eyes closed, I could sense the light from his screen on his phone and just vomited everywhere. So he really struggled as well. Like, he couldn't cook food anymore because if I smelled food, I would vomit. He couldn't go anywhere because he had to take care of me like I was a baby. You know, he couldn't have his scented body wash or scented deodorant because that would make me vomit. And he couldn't even move. Like, if he did get into bed beside me, he couldn't move because if he moved, I would vomit. If he opened curtains, I would vomit. Sometimes even if he spoke to me, I would vomit. So he was just kind of, it was just so difficult for both of us. So as I said, the only thing I could keep down was bread. And when I did have bread in my stomach, it made me feel a little bit better. In my normal life, when I'm not pregnant, I do not eat bread because for me, if I just look at a slice of bread, I gain a pound. So I always stay away from it. It's the worst thing that I can eat. But I had no choice, so I was just eating so much bread to try and stop this nausea. And even though I was still vomiting like 20 times a day, I was only vomiting liquids, like anything, any drink I would try and drink, or Mr. Freeze's or whatever, but I wasn't vomiting the bread. So I started piling on a ton of weight. And that's another thing that was difficult with my diagnosis, because one of the main symptoms of hyperemesis is weight loss. And that's kind of one of the biggest flags that it is hyperemesis. But I wasn't having weight loss, I was having the opposite. I was having extreme weight gain. So that was even more difficult. So I was eating all this bread, but I couldn't go for a walk, I couldn't exercise. There was no way I could try and control the weight gain. I blew up. I gained 100 pounds, and the effect that has on your body, like, I started my pregnancy, I think I was 126 pounds when I got pregnant. So to gain 100 pounds, that's nearly double. I nearly doubled in size, which just meant I ached all over. When I did, you know, have to get out of bed to go to a doctor's appointment or whatever, it was such a struggle carrying around all this excess weight that I wasn't used to. But apart from just myself feeling like the emotional and physical pain of gaining all this weight, it also, as I said, made it more difficult to get a diagnosis. Like, what do I have? I don't know what I have. And it just made me feel even more alone. I was so alone in every single way. I couldn't see my friends. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't have conversations with people. You know, I always say if hyperemesis is good for anything, it's for showing you who your true friends are. For my whole pregnancy, I think I can count on my hands how many times I left the house apart from doctor or hospital appointments. The nausea did ease a little bit though halfway through. I think at 6 months I felt well enough to go into hospital to get IV treatment, and that really did help, but it never lasted that long. And then I found that I could keep down Coke. So that was amazing to be able to drink something again, and even though it was just Coke, not that healthy, but just being able to have liquid in me that I wouldn't throw up was amazing. And then as I started to feel a little bit better, I could get on my phone, on my laptop again, and one of the first things I did was Google my symptoms and try and figure out what I had, because I still didn't really know. And I found a hyperemesis support group on Facebook, and I joined that, and I seriously think that this group saved my life, because I found women that were going through the exact same thing as me. And even though it was still really rare, I did find women that had the extreme weight gain as well, and that kind of made me feel like, okay, I'm not going crazy, like, is this what I have? And my whole time through the pregnancy, I never had any kind of official diagnosis and treatment plan. I just saw once my doctor had written on a file that I did have Hyperemesis Gravidarum, and that was the most validation I got. But on my second pregnancy, I knew that I had been looking for help in the wrong places. So my second pregnancy, I went straight to the emergency department in my maternity hospital. I got a proper diagnosis, I got proper treatment, I started IVs straight away, and my medication, I think I was on Caraban, Stemetil and ondansetron, all three of them for the whole pregnancy. And it was so much better the second time around. So my first pregnancy, the hyperemesis lasted all the way up to the birth of my baby and beyond. I had it for an extra 2 weeks after giving birth, which sucked, but having my baby made it a little bit easier. And if anyone is suffering, please send me an email. You can reach out to me and I will help you in any way I can, give you any advice, or even just be an ear if you want to rant and vent about how awful this is. I'll help in any way I can. So that's it. That is my journey with hyperemesis. the most difficult video I've ever done, but I'm hoping that this helps someone else in some way. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, please subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.